Good morning. Whether you're here in person or watching at home, it's good to be with you this morning. It's good for all of us to be together. As we gather this morning, let me share words with you from the Unitarian Universalist minister George Kimmich Beach. Because we live with mystery, we trust that which is deeper than we know, that which steadies us and rekindles our spirits, that which finally in faith may be named the love that has laid hold upon us and will not let us go. Come, my friends, with our hearts open to both the challenges and the possibilities that this new day and this new week bring, with our hearts open to all that inspires, sustains, redeems, and transforms us, come, let us worship together.
I'm lucky there's a sun, I'm lucky there are stars, I'm lucky there's a moon and a sky. And when I go to bed, lay down my sleepy head, I'm lucky there's you and I. I'm glad the rains fall, the winds blow, the oceans roll and roll. I'm glad the flowers bloom, the birds sing, as the earth spins round and round. I'm lucky there's a sun, I'm lucky there are stars, I'm lucky there's a moon and a sky. And when I go to bed, lay down my sleepy head, I'm lucky there's you and I. I'm glad the children play in their own way, and people love and grow. I'm glad the mountains rise to touch the skies as the night turns toward the light. I'm lucky there's a sun, I'm lucky there are stars, I'm lucky there's a moon and a sky. And when I go to bed, lay down my sleepy head, I'm lucky there's you and I. I'm lucky there's you and I.
Good morning. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. Will those of you who are here with us in person this morning please stand in body or spirit for our chalice lighting? And if you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join us and light yours at this time. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to nurturing the spirits of one another and the common good of the world we share. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. And for those of you who are already standing, I invite you to remain standing for our opening hymn, Wake Now My Senses, and if you are not awake yet, you will be soon. It is number 298. Once again, good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Hurwitz, and I am one of your worship associates here at UUFR. If you are visiting us for the first time this morning, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are, and wherever you are on your own religious or spiritual journey, you are welcome here. If you are visiting us for the first time and you would like to wear a name tag, please do. You can pick up one at the welcome stand in the foyer if you have not already done so, and feel free to give it your own special pizzazz. You may add your own flower, chalice, bird, or tree if you'd like to. And if you're a return visitor, you can pick up a more permanent name tag at our welcome stand. If you are visiting us online, I invite you to fill out our visitor form on our website. If you do this, you'll start receiving our weekly e-newsletter. I hope that all of you will read through the chalice you received by email on Thursday about everything happening at UUFR. But just in case you didn't happen to look at it yet, I'm not looking at you specifically, I just want you to know, our in-person social hour this morning will be downstairs in Founders Hall. Please join us for a holy boly bowl of sweet and delicious fruit salad, carefully prepared for you by our children. Also, registration for our Spirit Fest, which is a fun annual retreat for all ages, closes in less than 2 weeks. Intake here. There's information about the weekend along with the registration on UUFR's website. It absolutely would not be the same without you. Please do check it out. And now I invite you to meet and greet your neighbor. Test, test. I will tell you, it is never the easiest thing to get a bunch of Unitarian Universalists to stop talking once they've started. But the good news is that you can continue those barely begun conversations right after the service during our social hour. Yay! And now we will have a very special story for all ages with our RE director, Dana Lundquist, and 2 special guests.
Oh, hi, Charlie.
Hi, Jory. What are you up to?
Not much. I'm just wondering.
Wondering about what?
Oh, all sorts of things.
Yeah, me too.
Wonderwalk?
Sure.
Is the sun the world's light bulb?
Is the fog the river's blanket?
Do mountains have bones?
Are forests the mountain's fur?
I wonder.
Me too.
Are trees the sky's legs?
Are branches the tree's arms?
Is dirt the world's skin?
Are roots the plant's toes?
Do caves have mouths?
Are shells the shore's necklace?
Is the ocean the world's bath?
Are rivers the earth's veins?
Is the wind the world breathing?
Is rain the day's tears?
Is the moon the world's nightlight?
I wonder.
Me too.
For the last 2 weeks, our elementary and middle schoolers have been spending time thinking about how Unitarian Universalism is sometimes described as the home for open minds and loving hearts. And I really like that way of defining Unitarian Universalism. That we are here to nurture open minds for finding truth and meaning, and loving hearts for respecting and affirming the dignity and interdependence of all life. And that's what we do here Sunday morning at 10 o'clock together. But when we leave here, we can continue to do that work by practicing wondering. And I mean making space to wonder. Because when we wonder about how the world is all around us and wonder about all the life we are connected to, we are becoming more open and more loving. And I love that our faith invites us into this spiritual practice that you can be any age to enjoy and take part of. You can do it at any time, and you can do it alone or with others. May you find time this upcoming week for a couple of moments of wondering. And right now, if you are in 1st to 8th grade, we are going to make some wonderful fruit salad. So if you would, 1st through 8th graders, if you would join us in the back of the sanctuary in just a moment, we are going to walk over to Peace Hall, 201 Peace Hall. Now notice, or just note, for all parents and caregivers, we are not going to have pickup in 201 Peace Hall. I'm actually going to ask you to come straight down to Founders Hall and immediately go to sign out your child, because we will be there waiting with you with bowls of fruit salad. All right? So it is now our time to sing out all of our children and youth.
This is a time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and sorrows of our community. We do this because we believe that a joy shared is a joy made greater, and that a sorrow shared may be made easier to bear. Anyone is invited to email a joy or sorrow to joysandsorrows@uufr.org before 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, and you can also write a card here at our candle table. There will be a memorial service for Dave Heater, who died in June, on Saturday, August 12th, that's next weekend, at 11 a.m., and a reception will follow the service. It'll be good to have an opportunity to celebrate Dave's life. In a moment, we'll sing together the meditation on breathing, but now, as we hold the joys and sorrows of our own lives together in our hearts, let's be together in stillness and silence, opening ourselves to that spirit within us and amidst us, called by many names, but known to every human heart, that leads us to a fuller, deeper, and richer experience of life.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Everything we do here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh is only possible because of the generous financial support each of us provides. If you would like to make a contribution this morning, we invite you to bring it forward and put it in one of our 3 offering plates, which are located at the front of each aisle. You may also give using one of the methods displayed on our screen. It is now time for our morning's offering. Please be generous. This morning, I'd like to share with you a reading by a beloved poet, Mary Oliver. This is I Worried. I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing, even the sparrows can do it, and I am, well, hopeless? Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? Am I gonna get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally, I saw that worrying had come to nothing, and gave it up, and took my old body and went out into the morning and sang.
Thank you, Wenchao. Let's thank Wenchao and Michelle, Marilyn, and Pat for their gifts of music this morning. Once upon a time, very long ago, and in a land very far away, legend tells of a Jewish village and two adult sisters who lived there together. Mary and Martha were affluent and hospitable, and they opened their home to a traveling spiritual teacher whose wisdom was becoming legendary despite his young age. As he spoke to the crowd that assembled in their home, Mary sat at his feet, rapt with attention. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. And she finally appealed to the master, himself frustrated, saying, "My sister has left me to do all the work myself. Tell her to help me." And he replied, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. And Mary has chosen what is better." Now, if you by choice, culture, or compulsion have had some exposure to Christianity, you may recognize this story from the New Testament Gospel of Luke and the young master as Jesus himself. This tale always strikes me in different ways at different times, but in this particular era of my life, two things are really standing out to me. The first is that, darn it, I am still totally Martha. I always want to be a Mary. I think one day I will be Mary. But the busyness, the responsibility, the resentment, yes, still Martha. Darn it. And the second thing that strikes me is how thoroughly modern this very old story feels. How relatable it is. Stressed host lashes out at underperforming family member instead of focusing on beloved guest. This is like my house 2 weeks ago. the tension over how to spend our time, what to prioritize moment to moment, how to focus on things we know are truly important when we face so many other demands. Those are hard decisions. In his intriguing new book, Time Management for Mortals, Oliver Burkeman argues that these decisions are especially fraught because the very act of making them entails the admission that we're finite, that we can't do everything, that instead of the omnipresence that some deities may enjoy, we have what the writer Jordan Rayner termed unipresence, a very real inability to be in more than one place at one time. Buzzkill. And each decision to do one thing and not another hints at an even darker reality. There will not be time for everything. Our time is very short. Berkman's thesis is that much of contemporary time management culture is devoted to one, perpetuation of the myth that there could be enough time for everything if you just organize it effectively, and two, the dissemination of strategies to avoid making decisions to do one thing and not another. And of course, one of the most popular of these strategies is multitasking. So let's take a minute to get clear on what we mean by that term. Because I remember these old experiments where they would give the subjects like a list of simple tasks and then time each person to see how quickly they could complete all of them. And some people were more likely to jam their way down the list in order, and other people, women if you must know, were more likely to scan the list and see that it made more sense to get the photocopies running first and then hammer the nails. That's not what I'm talking about. No. I'm talking about a much more ambitious kind of multitasking, where your prefrontal cortex does two things simultaneously, like responding to emails while participating in a Zoom meeting, or texting your spouse the grocery list while you talk to your sister about her vacation, or straightening up your living room while you listen to this message. Everyone online is like, can she see us? I thought you said she couldn't see us. Maybe this is what Martha was doing that day 2,000 years ago when she got frustrated, trying to take care of a few things around the house while listening to Jesus teach with one ear. 2,000 years is a lot of human history, but it's a blip to evolutionary biologists. Our brains are functionally identical to Martha's, and none of us can multitask worth a damn. Asking your brain to do two things at once, it turns out, doesn't actually result in it doing two things at once. Alas, we unipresent creatures appear to lack that capacity. Instead, our brains oblige us by switching back and forth between the tasks we're doing very quickly. So quickly that it feels like we're doing two things or more at once. Okay, perfect. Except recent studies show that the alternating lapses of attention, plus the brain's switching costs, result in a temporary degradation of IQ similar to that of someone smoking a joint. I thought, there's no way that can be true. And then a few weeks ago, I was talking to one of my daughters while also trying to nail down a rental car. And she goes, Mom, are you listening to me? Yes, Madeline, I said. And she says, Mom, I'm Ella. So then I thought, yeah, with me not being able to tell which of my kids I'm talking to, the comparison of multitasking to being stoned begins to feel more legit. Why would we habitualize a strategy that is doomed to failure by universal neurologic limitations? That in its more extreme but still widespread manifestation keeps its practitioners locked in a perpetual hover, worrying over all their priorities, but unable to engage in any but the most superficial. There's the existential FOMO, the fear of missing out that Berkman describes. But from the perspective of another author, Johann Hari, we also live in an attentional, pathogenic culture in which you have to swim upstream against very powerful currents to achieve mental concentration. He makes that case powerfully in his latest work, which is called Stolen Focus: Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again. The technological environment that we've built for ourselves to inhabit undermines sustained thinking, and it seems we're doing less and less of it. For example, the latest studies that track how we operate on our devices, including computers, show that white-collar workers average 3 minutes on one task before switching screens, and high school and college students last about 65 seconds. Hari posits that, as with the obesity epidemic, a problem that is often couched in terms of individual self-discipline is much more attributable to macro social and economic forces. In the attention economy we all live within, the fuel that feeds the fire and brings home the bacon is our attention. How quickly can it be captured? How long can it be held? The best resource companies on this planet employ the smartest people in this world to hack our attentions, and they've pretty much crushed it. Actually, B.F. Skinner crushed it in the 1950s by discovering that by carefully rewarding preferred behaviors, you can gain a remarkable degree of control over animals who are theoretically, at least, exercising free will. Hari provides a good overview of how this works. To take a simple example, you wait for a hungry pigeon to make a random movement, like that aligns with your goals, raising its left wing, say, and immediately provide a few food pellets. When it raises the wing again, you give the pellets again. Even animals that are not renowned for their smarts tend to catch on quickly and will perform the rewarded movement repeatedly. Working step by step, you can train pigeons to play ping pong. You can train rabbits to put coins in piggy banks. Incentivized appropriately, many animals will focus obsessively and eventually reflexively on whatever you program them to focus on. But does it work on people? Oh, my friends, it does. Our high intelligence makes us eminently trainable, and boy, do we crave our pellets. Hearts and likes are some of the most effective reinforcement mechanisms in the attention economy. But if you're too sophisticated for that, maybe you respond well to news alerts or climate warnings. Not to worry. What Hari terms the thin, insistent stream of rewards can be individually tailored, and it becomes ever more compelling as the algorithms learn more about what engages each of us most effectively, usually a tasty mix of fear and indignation. My own pellets tend to be updates on access to reproductive health care, with some dieting and aging articles mixed in to make me wonder if I'm as attractive as I used to be. My husband's pellets are 70% the Republicans are destroying the country, 20% investment tips, and 10% Kardashian drama. Hari further argues that the media-hyped mindfulness craze helps keep the focus on our own personal habits and failures, distracting us from the intentionally manipulative design of the system. In every checkout aisle, I see exhortations to meditate 10 minutes a day, and I'm always castigating myself. How can I be failing to meditate for 10 minutes a day? But now I'm kind of like, meditate? When was the last time I spent 10 minutes thinking? Or daydreaming, wondering, From the time I get dressed in the morning listening to NPR One, stories chosen just for me, to the time I do that last round of kitchen cleanup with a favorite podcast, my attention is occupied every moment. I am so very busy, and increasingly within my own individually curated bubble. Some attention experts sound the alarm about a future world where an upper class of people are educated about the constant assault on attention and have the means to protect theirs. Meanwhile, the rest of the people with fewer resources to resist the manipulation live increasingly inside the online world where their captive attention is perpetually auctioned. I wasn't fully on board with the dystopians until those blaring gas pump video screens became ubiquitous, and that was the tipping point for me. Now I agree that there is a contest for every last minute of our attention, a well-funded effort to fill every last second of silence. Do you remember that giant evil brain from Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time? It controlled everyone in Camazotz by forcing them to think in rhythm with its irresistible, pulsating beat. Sometimes I think about that. But instead of having one inescapable synchronizing meter, we have a billion inescapable little distraction machines, scattering thoughts, splintering focus, and making it darn near impossible to get through a book. Hari and Berkman make this last point in different ways. Hari describes multiple academic studies, the upshot of which is that for the first time in the history of our republic, a majority of Americans did not read any books at all last year. And Berkman shares his anecdotal observation. I heard a few gasps, only in a Unitarian universe. I think just the audience was like, oh, I love that. Berkman has a more anecdotal observation, which is that even those of us who were bookworms as children can hardly make it through a paragraph without reaching for our phones. But I need no convincing from either of them. I myself find it hard to read books these days. I found it hard to read their books. Before we go on, we should ask whether it is, in fact, still important to be able to read books. One thing I learned after the 2016 election is that we must be able to explain and defend things we thought were self-evident. After all, my mother often bemoans that the public schools no longer teach kids how to write in cursive. And my rather snarky response has been that they don't teach them how to hitch up the horse and buggy either. Given that we still read articles, emails, texts, is it an antiquated skill to read books? The idea that the medium is the message was coined by the Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan in the 1960s. His famous phraseology suggests that the form through which information is conveyed has a profound impact on the way we understand that information. In other words, the medium itself, with its unique attributes, has an inherent message that goes beyond the specific information that it delivers. So the message of the app formerly known as Twitter, for example, is that anything we're saying can be said in 280 characters, and that what matters most about what anyone says is how other people respond the minute they hear it. So what message is conveyed when books are the medium? In the realm of nonfiction, I'd say the message is that topics are complex and require significant discussion. And for fiction, nothing less radical than the promise of crossing every possible boundary to fully inhabit another human experience. Let's indulge in a Hemingway quote. All good books are alike in that they are truer than if they had really happened. And after you have finished reading one, you will feel that all that happened to you. And afterwards, it all belongs to you. The good and the bad, the ecstasy, the remorse and sorrow, the people and the places, and how the weather was. Fiction fosters empathy, which is why it has enemies on the right and on the left, and why a continuing decline in the consumption of fiction is not a neutral trend. I asked Reverend James once how I might improve my messages at church, and he put his hands together and he looked up at the ceiling for a minute, and then he said very nicely, "When you have talked about a problem for a while, it is good to talk about some solutions." Okay. Some solutions. We have to do something, right? Because the point of the biblical story about Martha is that busyness and preoccupation can prevent us from hearing God. And geesh, that was when God was sitting right in her actual living room. And here we are being Unitarians and occasionally hearing God in like a bird singing or something. So, we really have to practice sitting still and listening. So now let's discuss 3 concrete things each of us can do to create and protect some space for stillness and focus in our lives. And let's begin by circling back to that critical caveat that given that this is a systemic problem, it behooves us to remember that we're pushing ourselves to create mental space within a system that is actively designed to vacuum mental space out of our lives. One of the most important points Hari makes in his book is that it doesn't have to be this way. There are alternative models, subscription-based services, for example, to the current model where our attention is the product that is being bought and sold. So there's a role here for political advocacy and for being gentle with ourselves when our self-discipline fails to get the better of the powerful forces intentionally set in motion against it. But 1, we can be intentional about using our phones as tools rather than reflexively turning to them to occupy our minds should we have a nanosecond of availability. That kind of nook and cranny phone utilization, often masquerading as productivity, trains our brains to crave a continuous drip of low-level distraction and to be increasingly intolerant of both real work and real rest. Some of us tried an experiment this morning. First, we didn't run the slides in here. We just kept it quiet and screen-free. And then we set up a table to drop off our phones when we got here and enjoy, tolerate, survive a few moments of not much of anything before the service. Maybe this will become a tradition. Whether it's leaving your phone at the house when you go for a walk, leaving it in the kitchen when you go to bed, something I have not yet managed to do, or even taking a weekly digital Sabbath, the first step to creating mental space is often getting some distance from the mental space dustbuster that you carry in your pocket. 2, we can stop multitasking, or at least cut back. Berkman recently had an editorial in the New York Times, I recommend it to you, in which he describes how he has stopped listening to podcasts when he unloads the dishwasher, and how radical a change has been created in his life by doing one thing at a time. Choose one activity this week during which you might typically do some multitasking, maybe even a UUFR Zoom meeting, and resign yourself to unipresence. And yes, I realize I will never be able to check email in a UUFR meeting again after today. 3, we can continue our proud Unitarian tradition of being lovers of books. We have so many prolific readers in this congregation, so many amazing personal libraries, and at least one book club, the Race and Culture Group. If you love to read but haven't picked up a book in a while, read one chapter this afternoon. It may feel surprisingly awkward, but as Hari describes from his own experience, as old neural pathways are reinforced, reading skills, including the ability to sit and drink deeply, deeply from a book, return. Martha, Martha, Jesus says in the tale, you are worried and upset about many things, but so few things are needed. The story doesn't say what happens next, but I like to think that at least for a few hours, Martha put her distractions away and sat down and listened with both ears to the wisdom of the universe. Let's give that a try. Amen.
Will you please stand as you are able for our closing hymn, number 83, Winds Be Still.
Please be seated. As we end this time of worship together, may we do so with ever more love for one another, with ever more gratitude for this precious gift of life we share this very day, with ever more peace in our hearts, and with ever more hope for our own lives in this world we share. Amen.